YouTube, Brian Phillips. Look what we have right here. It's so dinky. Super excited to be bringing you this, and I have a special shout out to Esteban, my buddy, who's gonna certainly be watching this, and very jealous, and I can't wait for him to see it. So this is super exciting. It is the only warbird I haven't done in this size class. Oh yeah, buddy. It's the P-47 from FMS.
Oh, cool.
And it's gonna be absolutely cool. Can't wait to get into this. And this does have the Reflex V2. As you can see, it's more powerful and speed. Okay.
Okay.
That was a little Chinese for my taste.
More power and speed.
Did it say more powerful?
Read it
says more powerful and speed.
Okay, fine.
Lost in translation by me.
Yes.
So we're gonna open this thing up and see what we've got going on. We have been super impressed with the way these FMS models have been turning out. Obviously, they make a lot of models for a lot of different companies too. And so sometimes when you see them, they might look strangely familiar, but I'm just gonna leave that to your imagination. Screw together assembly with minimal glue required. There's glue required?
Oh,
what?
man.
What kind of glue do we
no
need?
Glue.
Yeah, I was hoping ball links. Yes, 4258, 460 kV motor with an 80 amp Predator ESC. Okay, digital Metal Gear servos throughout. Very nice. Nice.
Functional flaps. Yay.
Yeah. Okay, so then this has LEDs too, which is also good. Of course, you're gonna see all these things as we unbox this beautiful P-47 from FMS right now. And as per usual, if you wanna help support Brian Phillips RC, buy this stuff from the links in the video description below. Look at that doohickey. Ooh. I heard some rods moving around in here.
I did. It was
it was making me a little bit concerned.
Yeah.
Because I kept hearing like dink, dink, dink every time I was moving the box.
Yes.
Oh, I hope there's nothing broke. Oh man, look at that. That is so gorgeous. Ooh. Can't wait to get this thing out of here. Oh, that's what we were hearing. Dunk, dunk. Looks like it broke.
Okay.
A couple of the pieces of the foam. Okay, so just pulling this all the way out is always fun. Oh boy. Be careful with your bombs. That looks so cool. Love it. Really detailed. Like it when they look like they're hanging, which is really neat. Aerodynamic shape, of course. But as you know, oh, minimal gluing.
Yeah, I was gonna say those look like glue.
Those must have to be glued on. Okay, so as you guys know.
Do you want me to help you?
As you guys know, I really enjoy doing these unbox build radio setups for you here on our channel, and we have done a lot of them. So if you're ever thinking you might want to buy an airplane, but you can't decide if you think it's worth the cash that they're asking, because some of these things are getting really expensive, then check our playlist. You can probably find the plane. We try not to talk too much about the money because we never know when you're gonna watch these things.
Yeah.
And we never know what they cost. And especially if you guys are watching 2 or 3 years in the future, just look what's happened to the cost of everything in the last couple of years. It's been nuts with COVID, just getting wrapped up. And so, oh yes, quick detach wings, nice. Amazing. So many cool details. I am excited to be bringing you this one, me and Megan, who is the camera crew. And if you guys are new to the channel and you don't understand that is a stupid inside joke from way back when, and obviously it's the same as every other YouTuber that has ever had a camera crew that is one person, but it's kind of Megan, my wife of many, many years, is my camera crew, and she does a great job of filming all this action, and she loves it more than almost anything. Oh. Wait, I'm sorry, I was lying.
This is a laugh.
Okay, so there's something in there.
More stuff.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what it is.
Odd. Oh, wow.
Whoa. Minimal gluing. We've got some flutes. No, those are guns.
That would be me. Okay.
We got guns here, guys. That is pretty sweet.
That's really pretty.
Painted chrome. This is a super high finish.
Yeah.
Look how mirror finish there. Very cool. This is the USB A to C.
Just put that there.
Oh, it went on the couch. It's supposed to go down the stairs. Minimal gluing. Might need some help sticking some things in some holes. Some screws here, screws and nut sack here.
Okay.
Okay, I would assume that's for the spinner. So this is the prop, as you can see, and we've got some very heavy duty prop members. It comes with some decals. Hopefully they're not gonna be water decals. 14.8 for your size on that. And you can tell ordinarily these props, the print goes forward, but on this it's printed on the back. Okay, then we've got this. That is so crazy.
That's
Look
really
at that.
pretty.
Super high polish finish. It's even got a simulated nut on the end. And then that finishes up. I mean, we kind of a lot of pieces making me nervous. When we get a high piece count, me and the camera crew usually cringe, but this should be pretty easy because as you can see, we've got all the main control surfaces installed with the ball links and huge, beautiful, gorgeous scale lines on this plane. Decal just need a little bit of pressing there. As you can see, large servos, beautiful gear door. That, I don't know if that's supposed to be bent up like that. That might be a problem, I'm not sure. And then LED here, looks like a bright LED, which is good. So we're excited to see that. I did notice that there was quite a bit of dihedral on this, and there is a little bit of dihedral on the P-47. So of course, dihedral speaks to the angle up on the wings. And speaking of angle up on the wings, if you guys are new to the hobby and you're just getting interested in all this model aviation or radio controlled cars or helis and things that we do on this channel, you're in the right place, because we're going to help you learn all the different nomenclature. Fiberglass, wing joiners.
Are they different lengths?
They are, yeah. And then we also have carbon fiber spars here. So if you don't know what an ESC is, an electronic speed control that has a BEC, that is carbon fiber. And you're trying to figure out what it is desperately at the hobby shop, and you can't get the help you need, or maybe they're giving you a hard time because you need a spare prop or something like that. I remember when I was first starting, one of the guys at the hobby shop says, I never buy spare props because I never break them. And I'm like, whatever, you're such a liar. And I mean, even today, you know, I go through props
occasionally. He probably just doesn't fly.
Well, no, that guy flew. But I still always thought that was a bunch of BS. And the thing is, what you'll find is that sometimes at the hobby shops, depends on the hobby shop, there's some great ones and there's some really not so great ones. It just depends on where you go and if they are going to help you get started. Well, we're here to help you if they won't. So definitely you're in good hands here at Brian Phillips RC. We have lots of beginner stuff as well as more advanced. This would be somewhere in the middle, maybe a second or third plane. Should be no problem for something like this. But with the Reflex V2, you're gonna have some technologies to help you automatically level. What do we have here? That is awesome. We have some rocket launchers. So if you're new to the hobby and you're wanting to learn how to get into the hobby, of course, these things will slide on and off. This is one of the bits of ordnance that come, one for each wing. Then you're in the right place. And we're gonna help you along as much as we can. That's just what we do. Okay, so that's the other end of the box. I kind of like to leave these things out like this because it's hard to put them back together. There's such puzzles anymore. Okay, so I think I can take this out next. Oh, wait, sorry. Horizontal stabilizer, and it looks like the manual. Oh, they folded it when they didn't need to. I hate folded manuals.
Such a pain.
It is, but not the end of the world. Okay, so this will help us to tell where the ordnance goes to, because I was just wondering what slot's gonna get what part. Okay, so now if you look at this, that is not a pinch hinge. You see how supple that is? That, or just moves super easy. There's actually a finger hinge inside of here, 1, 2, and 3 of them. So that's really nice. And then just to give you an idea, of the flexibility or lack therein, which is what you want. You want a stiff horizontal stabilizer. And then these things slide together. Look at this. Okay. That seems like a little bit of resistance there. I don't know if this thing got screwed up or if maybe somebody was going through and winnowing that down with like a knife or something.
Yeah.
A lot of little pieces of foam on this too, which is unusual. But yeah, it looks good. A little bit of bubbling here. Not a huge issue, but just remember these are the areas that like to kind of pucker up as you put them into the tail of the fuselage. So I'm gonna actually move this Ordinance too. So it's over here. Those are of course guns for the wings. So guys, if you're just returning to the hobby and not a new RC pilot or new or interested RC pilot, then you're in the right place too. Because that's the other big thing we do is we try to specialize in getting you guys back in the air. Wow. Look at the cockpit in this thing. Holy crap. That is so detailed.
Wow. That is very cool.
And really cool, guys. That is so sweet. I had no idea. And yes, that is way more detailed than I thought it was going to be. Look at the beautiful lines on this. See this here? Engine, tight clearances, almost right on top of the motor. Absolutely gorgeous. And I just love that canopy and cockpit area. It's so detailed. That is awesome. I had no clue it was going to be like that. I mean, we've seen the same pilot used a few different times. Looks like this one's painted up a little bit more.
Yeah.
So, actually, you know what we need to do?
What?
We need to get a plane stand for this thing because it's kind of big.
It is.
And in order to, actually, you know what I'm going to do?
Set it down.
I'm going to set it down because with foam, you do need to be a little bit careful. You don't do that with it. But if you guys don't have one of these things are nice and they're very inexpensive. You're talking like 10, 20 bucks, just depending on where you get it from. And it makes it so much easier. So let's lay this down here. Look at the exhaust ports.
That's a big plane.
It's big, yeah. See the exhaust ports? So cool. So I'm super excited to get this thing built, but just kind of looking at the details as we go. It's a really tall plane. The fuse is really tall on this thing. Let's pull this thing out and look inside too. Oh, good fit. Very big opened area. And look at that, where the battery goes. So this is very different than the alternative that I thought this would be comparable to, which would have been like the E-Flight offering that we've worked with in the past. But of course, that's been, as far as I know, it's been discontinued for some time.
But you were saying this is a bigger size class of P-47 than we've ever done, right?
No, I always thought that the 1400 millimeter or 1500 millimeter was kind of the same as the 1200 millimeter. Even though this was bigger, it was just because the P-47 was a bigger plane. So my understanding was that it was kind of like of the same size class. But I'm wondering if maybe I'm just straight up wrong on that, guys.
It seems a lot bigger.
Yeah, I mean, I might have to go get the P-51 after we're done because we have the 1.2 meter from E-Flight over here. And we'll have to do some comparisons because this wing size, I mean, it would have been bigger, I believe, than the P-51.
In real life.
In real life.
You're talking scale.
Yeah. So like if it was, you know, a certain, this also comes off.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. We had a plane the other day and I pulled the foam off and I about damaged the plane doing it. So I've been sort of being super careful lifting the parts out. But I just love the way this looks. I love the invasion stripes on the top and bottom. I kind of do really like the invasion stripes with white and black. I feel like that high contrast is maybe a little bit better than the silver and the black. Ooh, yeah, that is a bent door. So if you look at this, guys, one thing we noticed right there. See that?
Popped up a little bit on the end.
But even inside, they painted everything green. That's so sweet. Okay, so we're getting somewhere. I thought maybe I saw a bunch of corrosion, but I didn't. on the connector for the wing. So without further ado, okay, we got parts all over the place. That's kind of our unbox. We're gonna show more details as we go, but I'm gonna take a second, clean this crap up, and we'll be right back. Okay, so one point of clarity from earlier. I think I was saying that we had flown this before, but in a different branding. I was wrong. This is a bigger size class. The one I was flying was actually a 1200 millimeter size, but I think it was more like almost 1400 millimeters by the time it was all said and done. This thing is actually a 1500 millimeter size class. So it's more detailed, it's bigger, and there is a retractable tail wheel assembly. So my apologies guys if I got that wrong. Also, this does fly on 6S 5000. I'm gonna run a 50C Smart Pack. It just calls for 22.2 and at least 35C. So I'll run 50C Gen 1 because I want the bounce lead so I can run a voltage alarm for the first few flights. And they are 17 gram servos, and then there's 3 9-gram servos, but they're all metal gear. So really exciting. And the first thing I wanna do on this model, before I even dig in anymore, I wanna have the camera crew help me film this, which is gonna be me fixing some wiring, because this is super annoying to me and we don't see this very often, but it drives me crazy. You see this? Why do we have a servo lead going right next to a moving component? I hate that. So there's 2 options. You can either tie it down here so that it's secured to keep it out of this action here, or you can do what I'm gonna do, which is basically pay attention to the polarity because it's not silk screened on here, okay? Pull this out, the brown goes toward me. I'm gonna take and pull this back down and under by just dropping this through. If I can get the stupid thing to go around the servos, okay? And then I'm just gonna pull that this way, and then a little bit more this way, and then a little bit more this way, and then I'm gonna go under the second one as well. And basically all I'm trying to do, guys, is just get that away from the movement and action of the servos. So if you're new to the hobby, we try to support you guys as you're getting up to speed. And so you may notice that we go into some details that you may not understand. So we're gonna try to explain things as we go. And we've done that for years. So if we go a little bit too fast in the radio setup, don't worry. This isn't a first time plane. So you'll probably be doing this on your second or third plane anyway. Okay. So then I'm gonna take brown and plug that into whatever this first channel is. I don't even know what this is. It's not labeled, but it says channel 5, so it must be the landing gear, okay? And that's just one thing you'll learn, is that as we go through these builds, we talk about not only what we're doing, but why we're doing it most of the time. Sometimes we don't talk about why we're doing it because it's like super obvious, but generally we do, okay? Rudder. Okay, so one of these is the steerable nose gear, or tail wheel in this case, so there's rudder. So the brown's gonna go to the tail of the aircraft. And I always like to pull my labels back just a little bit. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna work this through. Now, obviously, when you get to where you've put together, 20 or 30 of these planes, you don't need a lot of help, but it's nice to know what type of build quality you're gonna get from a particular model. And sometimes they're very expensive. So that's one of the reasons why some people like these unbox build radio setup videos. And I've never really gotten into them myself. I just do them because that's what people ask us to do. And they like the long format where they don't have a bunch of cuts and all the bad stuff is taken out. And people are like, oh, look how perfect this thing is. And FMS can do no wrong. And Horizon is perfect. And Hobby Zone has never made a mistake. And that's not what we do on this channel. We just hang it all out there and try not to be completely unfair to the manufacturers, distributors, and hobby shops that we work with. Okay, that one just came out of, didn't really mean to pull that out. I meant to slide this up. And I don't know, was it close or was it?
I am not.
Shoot. I hope that's in the right spot. I guess we'll find out here shortly. But anyway, what I was getting at is that we don't do this in a way that's, mean-spirited necessarily, but we do try to be as truthful as possible so that you guys can kind of make a good value judgment on whether or not you think a plane is going to be worth big money, because some of these things are, like we've mentioned a few times, are getting pretty expensive. And not only that, but you put a big expensive battery in there, even if you're not super married to one particular model versus the next, you don't want to crash and have a $150 or $200 battery go down with it. So we're gonna help get a few zip ties here. They did not come with the plane, of course, so full disclosure. We try to point out when we're using things that didn't come with the plane too, just so you guys kind of know what we're using, and you may end up having to use it as well. It's just a little cable management. You don't have to do this. You can just plop this stuff together. And also, that's one thing you're gonna find too on Brian Phillips RC is that we do real build times for you, whereas when you see on the websites, many times they're gonna tell you it's like a 15-minute build or a 10-minute build or some ridiculous, god-awful short thing. And it's like, there's no way on God's green earth that you're getting this thing built in 15 minutes. Right. You might be able to build it the second time in 15 minutes because you will have had all the small components put together, and then you only disconnect maybe 4 screws to actually take the main wing off on the left side or the right side. And you can get away with building it real quick then if you need to take it to the flying field and you've got a Miata or something small like that. Okay, so you see what I did there? It's tied up, it's tidy, it's not anything too tight, you're not pulling everything, it's still got a little bit of room to breathe, but then everything is otherwise well managed. So these are gonna go to our receiver. Now this is spatially aware. It needs to know where it is in time and space, and especially how it is in reference to the aircraft's body, because it's gonna be making positional changes and corrections. So we have auto leveling that we can turn on where it will bring the plane right, and it will make sure it's pointed straight and it's pointed level. And that's the auto leveling. And then there's also stabilizer that will resist rolling effect from wind. It will resist yaw effect and deploy the rudder opposite that movement. Same thing with the ailerons and same thing with the elevator. So all three, both pitch, yaw, and roll will all be corrected by the stabilizer, which is this Reflex V2. So if you guys are curious what that is, the receiver plugs in here, and then all that information gets passed through there, and you can think of it as like a co-pilot. You are still in command and control of the aircraft, but then the stabilizer is going to help to resist environmental impact. And no, I'm not talking about Greta. I'm saying environmental impact like wind, like thermal action, downdrafts, you know, all that stuff, or just holding a plane and moving it. You get a vote with your sticks, and then it has an impact on its own in addition to or in opposition to your stick inputs. So it's actually really helpful. Now, auto leveling is a little different. When you let go of the sticks, it's not only going to resist the roll, pitch, and yaw from environmental impact, it's also going to try to bring itself to a level and true condition. So it needs to be aware of its position relative to the aircraft. Now that comes all pre-set up, but there's a USB-A to USB-C, so you can go in there and change the settings, or you can update firmware. I've never done it. Full disclosure, I have no clue how to do it. I don't want to know how to do it. I never want to do it because it's going to be terrible, I bet. So anyway, that being said, and it's just speaking from experience, guys. So that being said, you don't need a super sophisticated receiver in this plane to have a good flight experience, but you do need enough channels. Okay, so this plane has how many channels? We have throttle, rudder, and by the way, guys, in no particular order, and I don't want to get into battles over what direction, what order of the servo channels. I could care less what channels they. If you're flying Futaba, good for you. If you're flying OpenTX, even better, good for you. If you're flying Spectrum, that's the way we're doing it. It doesn't have to be that way, but that's what we're going to do. Okay, so we have throttle, rudder, elevator, ailerons, gear, flaps, stabilizer on off. So what does that mean?
I mean, 8-channel receiver.
That'd be how many?
That's 7.
Okay. So now, when you ask me in the comments, can I use an AR-410? The answer is no.
No.
Can I use a 620? Yeah, but why would you pay for a stabilizer to inject into a stabilized, you know, you don't have to use a Reflex, by the way, full disclosure. If you want to see an AR-630, then you can use an AR-630 that's going to give you a stabilizer. I said 620. I should have said 630. My apologies, guys. 630 wouldn't have the antenna. 631 would have the external antenna. Also, the 630 has end pins as opposed to top pins on the 631.
Yep.
The 631's like maybe $5 more, I think. But then you could tear that out and you could do all sorts of different wing types and stupid things. But you don't need that on a plane like this. Inboard flaps are going to be plenty effective. And so just in looking at spatial awareness, then the receiver becomes spatially aware if you go with something like that. That's going to have AS3X and safe artificial 3-axis stabilization and safe sensor-aided flight envelope, which is a Spectrum product, okay? So it is married to the Spectrum line. It's a Horizon Hobby product. This is an FMS product. They are competitive brands, but Spectrum Horizon buys planes from FMS as well. If you guys weren't already aware, sometimes the planes in the E-flite lineup are made by FMS. So anyway, we just bring this to your attention, not because we're trying to pick sides. We love both brands. They both execute good products, and we support both. And you can help support us by buying whatever you want. We don't care which one you buy. We just want you to know the truth about this particular model versus that particular model versus the next particular model. And that's the way we do it here. So anyway, if you don't like truth, then you can watch, there's a plethora of other channels out there that will tell you what you want to hear. Fastest, cheapest, best, littlest, bluest, reddest, whatever. We generally don't get any of those things on this channel because our planes are whatever they are. So anyway, okay, so we've got now 7 channels. What are our choices, Megan?
Like an 80-20.
You can do an 80-20,
Somebody's
which
gonna...
would be telemetry, but not AS3X and safe.
Yep.
8360T would not be necessary in here because you'd go 637. And 637, if you replace that, would give you the capability for voltage telemetry and the other telemetries like barometer for altitude, and also input for other Spectrum style telemetry options. But you could also use the 631 or the 630, but you're going to lose your pack voltage because you don't have that little 1S pH, micro pH plug that's going to be able to run in parallel to the battery. But it's considerably cheaper. But you don't need the extra channels that come with the 8360T because you don't need to control each channel, each wing, surface individually. So before I get off track, you could alternatively go with a 6-channel receiver, and you're like, but Brian, you just said you needed 7. No, you don't. You want 7 because you want to be able to go from stabilizer on to auto leveling. Stabilizer on, auto leveling. Gear, flaps, ailerons, elevator, rudder, and throttle, okay? Now, if you had thrust reverse, if you had an Avian ESC instead of the Predator ESC, then you would need another channel. Again, 8020T works great for that, except you can't really do that because the Avian is not going to talk through its serial data transfer is not going to pass through that reflex. So you need then to tear that out and put in your AS3X and safe equipped receiver. And so then you can do as simple as a 630, 631, 637, and you can do all that. So the reason we take this time to talk about this is because I will get inevitably at least 10 people that will ask me, what receiver should I use, Brian? Okay, the simple answer is, if I was putting a receiver in this right now, I would pick a 6-channel receiver because I have hundreds of planes and I understand that the mode I'm going to fly in is stabilized mode. I do not care about the auto leveling, but because we showcase this product on Brian Phillips RC to a number of you who are going to be newer pilots, first of all, this is a big plane. It runs on an expensive battery that requires an expensive charger. But the transmitter is going to be the same as a less expensive bind and fly, okay? So it may not be that far off from a beginner plane for you. We're going to use the NX8 when we set it up, and so we're going to give you the option to follow along with this on a 6-channel, and I'll show you what. All you have to do is at any point during your build, you have to plug into this channel and get that LED to flash in the correct circumstance, and then unplug this channel and it will stay in that mode into perpetuity, regardless of how many battery cycle changes you have, until some backup battery in there goes dead. It might be electronically erasable memory, I don't know, which is also known as an EEPROM. So I don't know that for sure. I assume it's probably got a backup battery built in the circuit somewhere, but I don't know. So I'm just gonna tell you what I know. In the past, we've been able to do that, which is super cool because then you could use the gear channel, or you could use the flaps channel, or whatever you want to use. You could use the rudder channel, just don't use the throttle channel because you want to keep away from safety issues. You set it to what you want and then you're done. Okay, and it just stays in stabilized mode. Now, because we're showing this, I think we're going to probably lean toward the 82. Well, hold on. All right, so in my excitement, I should have just shown you what I was talking about. This is the AR 8020T. Okay, so that's going to give us this little micro PH1 1S connector, which is going to plug into that little telemetry input. And then that red and black wire is going to run in parallel on this, and it's going to tell us the voltage through our discharge lead, not our balance lead, and not through telemetry via a smart ESC, which is then back channeled through our ESC and then into the telemetry, which would happen on either this or the 630. This happens to be the 631. I would prefer on a bigger plane like this, you go with something with an antenna. Even though Spectrum claims that it doesn't matter, I don't buy it. And why would they offer this if it doesn't? This would get you the entire stabilization, auto leveling, and then some more goodies. Plus you get 2 additional channels you can control beyond the 6 that are pluggable. If you wanted to buy a receiver and you were doing it right, this might be the best option, okay? Plus that gives you the future use of thrust reverse if you need it. I don't think you're gonna need thrust reverse on this. It has big, thick wings with flaps. You're gonna be able to slow it down nicely. But if you really wanna cheap out and you've blown your budget on this plane and you want this, but you still want the good high quality Spectrum, you could go here, or you could go here and you can do DSMX and you can do it for a fraction of the cost. Okay, this would be like a Lemon RX, so we'll link to this too. Well, no, we'll link to whatever we use, but we always have links to this in our master links. So the 620 is probably, honestly, the best option for this plane because you can get by with it. And it's gonna do everything you need so long as you know what mode you're gonna need. Now, if you need auto leveling, then you gotta bump up and you just gotta do this. And you're like, but then I have to pay for the telemetry? Yeah, that's right, because you're not getting an air receiver in 8 channels without telemetry. I'm sorry, there are certain breakpoints and that's one of them.
Yep.
You'll also notice that this is considerably cheaper because it doesn't have AS3X than this. Okay, so we've shown you a whole spectrum of Spectrum products and within that spectrum of Spectrum products, we've shown something that's not a Spectrum product, which is a Lemon RX 6-channel without stabilization. It's got a diversity antenna and pins, which is nice. And this could plop down right there and take up virtually no real estate.
Yeah.
But we have real estate, so why do we care? We're gonna save that for another plane that's got a small fuse that's gonna give us trouble with putting something like this in, which by the way, you can always dump the cabinet if you wanna make this thing small, and it's actually lighter then. Okay, so the 620 would do the trick on this plane. Full disclosure. We're gonna go with this because I think this plane is worth it. It's a little bit more money. It's not a big jump, but it's worth a little bit more because we've got the diversity antennas and we're gonna have pack voltage now.
Yeah.
Pack voltage to me is helpful. It's more helpful on planes that are gonna be tending to be flown in different conditions for different ways in different conditions, like jets, where you're gonna really suck that battery and you wanna know that you're getting low, okay? But also keep in mind, once you've flown a Warbird a handful of times, you can basically know how long it flies and you can just set your timer. ESCs, or excuse me, the EDFs, electric ducted fans, are gonna tend to be way more demanding on batteries and suck them dry quicker. Prop planes, you get a lot more resilience, especially with smart packs nowadays. They are automatically balancing each of the cells as you fly. And that means if you get a sag because you're doing this high speed pass, you go up into an unlimited vertical and then you really just sag one of those cell sags. You come out of it, do a stall turn. By the time you get back down to the ground, it will have resolved that sag. And so my experience has been timers are usually effective. So this is fine, but this is gonna allow us to showcase the auto leveling. Okay, so if you need auto leveling, you need the extra channel. You're like, but Brian, I'm new to this hobby. I don't wanna spend the money. I'm sorry, when you're new to the hobby, sometimes you have to spend more money because you don't know what you're doing. I mean, that's just the truth. We're here to help you. And please take the good advice. It is good advice. Okay, so the 8 channels is gonna waste 1 channel, right?
Yep.
So there is such a thing as a thrust reverse on non-Spectrum ESCs. That might give you your extra channel for that if you wanna do it. Or if you wanna put in something special on your wing type, you might be able to do that. But again, because it's all passing through the Reflex V2, you can't necessarily use that on one of your primary control surfaces. So what people like to do on these is they will set up the rudder channel separate from the steerable tail wheel. Why would you do that, camera crew?
Because then if you have a disparity between your rudder and your tail wheel, you would be able to trim or control one or the other.
Hypothetically, you could do that, but you could set your rates lower. So you would set your rates lower in certain conditions, or you could actually have significantly lower for your tail wheel. So when you're landing, if you get a squirrely plane, especially on a tail dragger, keep it up on its mains as long as you can, drop it down, and then it wants to squirrel out on you, like the P-51 1.5 meter from E-Flight. Really squirrely on the ground with the tail wheel. I hope this thing doesn't suffer from that. So anyway, lots of rationale going into this. Again, you could also just plop this in there and get everything you need if you know you want the stabilizer to be on and you don't want auto leveling and you don't want to switch. But I would not recommend using a 620 or the Lemon. If you're trying to learn to fly and you have auto leveling on all the time, you're going to limit how much you can bank and how much you can pitch, which means you're going to run into a tree sometime because you're not going to be able to go wide enough, or you're going to hit an obstruction because you can't turn sharp enough. You need to be able to shut that stuff off. And you're like, but Brian, I don't shut it off ever. You will eventually, trust me. Okay, so this is our solution. We're going to go with this, and we're not ready for the radio setup yet, but we know what we're going to use, so we'll pause and put the stuff away. Okay, so the camera crew has just reminded me that I talked for 30 minutes about this. And if I talk for 30 minutes and I bored you to sleep, I apologize. At least you got a good nap out of it. All right, so continuing on with the build. Yeah, that was just, we tidied up these cables. Then we talked about the radio setup, and then the camera crew reminded me how slow I am. So you're welcome. Okay, carbon fiber rod. This is going to join these two surfaces together. There's obviously some screw holes here, so we're just going to stuff that in there. And there's your elevator control. It's coming out the side of the fuse. And no, I'm not going to hook up a servo test or anything like that. I'm just going to wait and get everything plugged in when we get to that point. Boy, that does not want to go through there. I'm going to try from this side, guys. Just see if it's easier. Yeah, it's going in okay. Oh, there's an alignment issue there. Show the people. Right there. I had to force that tip down in there. So, ooh, there it goes. Okay, sheesh. So we're in. Really had to ram it in there.
Yeah, a little aggressive.
Gotta get it in. Okay, so now this is gonna have to end up on the inside, but that's very easy to bend, so I'm not worried about it. I'm just gonna hold the elevator up. Now look what I'm doing. As I come close, I don't wanna crush this because that silver looks bad when it gets crushed. So I'm gonna pull it back toward my belly, toward my chest, and I'm gonna let that slide in. Once it's in, now I can just kind of walk it up and down a little bit until it goes in. But you see what I'm talking about there, guys? Mm-hmm. See how it's wanting to kind of fight me a little bit as I go? I'm just gonna work it in and just, you gotta really spread out the load on your hand, on your palm of your hand, because you don't want to damage it. It's gonna look like crap if you do. I'm just leave it right there for now. Okay, so now the other side, same circumstance. Beautiful hinge, by the way. I wish all these foamies had hinges like that. Mm-hmm. To be honest, a lot of the features that we drool over on the 1500 millimeter warbirds are not present on all the warbirds because it's not necessary on the smaller ones. It just seems like it's really important. And some people gripe about foamies, you know, because they have a certain disposable feel to them. We have hundreds of foamies and they're in reasonably good shape. They definitely wear and tear more than their counterparts that'd be made of balsa wood, but they're considerably cheaper for what you get. So just keep that in mind. And they fly every bit as, well, they fly very good. Maybe not every bit as good, but like 90% as good, or maybe 95% as good. Sometimes they fly better. Just depends on the model. This one's wanting to sit on the edge here. Now, I'm gonna just talk about this for a second. This plastic molding that's actually bearing the load of the elevator and horizontal stabilizer in this case, not the elevator is free. It feels like this side's down a little bit. So I'm just gonna be careful. I'm gonna kind of line this up so that I don't have it snapped in, but I'm just gonna stick it in there loose. The camera crew and I are going to not forget to plug that in later.
Right.
So now I'm having to press this down just a little bit. It's really just a kind of a strange spot. I've not had a problem pushing one in like this lately. Oh, there it goes. It's finally stuffed in. Oh, that that is hard to get in there.
It is looking a little scary.
And also, I had problems getting this carbon fiber rod through. So it's kind of got me nervous, like maybe there's just the alignment issue is not in my head. Okay, so I'm just using my fingernail to kind of help guide the foam into that opening. Okay, so I just found an opening where it's already in. I'm just walking it back, because remember, this is just foam. You can crush it in there, but I don't want to crush it out here. See how I drag that out with my fingernail? Okay, I also want to set this up on the end of the plane stand. So if you guys are having trouble with yours, don't feel bad. I was having trouble with mine. Okay, so we're going to try this again. I just really don't want to like mar it up all over the place.
Right.
Oh man, I'm really having to push. But you see what I'm doing? I'm trying to grab it as wide a surface area as possible, because otherwise you will crush this and it will, it's not that it won't recover or anything, it's just going to have little crush marks on it. So there's just not that much material.
Are your elevators connected with that little rod thing before you get too far?
They will be.
Okay.
I mean, I'm like right at the point where they're going to start touching. Okay. And thank you for catching that. I mean, I was paying attention to it. Okay, they're kind of joining together there. So as you can see, look, that's what I was afraid of doing. Got a little crushage here. See those crushing lines? If you get some like that and it's really annoying to you and you don't want to look at that, you can take hot steam and you can take those bumps out. But truthfully, I'm just going to keep going with this and hope I can get it. I'm really trying to not damage this. Ooh, man, I'm really, like, my hands are getting hot. Touch my hand.
I can tell just from like watching.
Touch my fingertips.
Yeah.
They're hot from pressing, from the friction.
You're getting super close though.
But I'm having to crush it. I do not like that. That is a bummer. Oh man, it's just like unavoidable. So I'm not sure why, but you can really tell I'm having to get into it. And that's the consequence if you have to screw it in like that, or if you. All right, so we're gonna put some screws in here. So we have a couple of different choices. It could either be the shorter one or the shorter one. And so it's kind of hard to know for sure. So what I did was I actually folded the manual opened and I got sort of like mixed signals. I'm still not 100% sure, but let's go ahead and measure. They're saying for the tail, it's supposed to be the KA3 by 15. So let's measure this with, okay, so let's see what this is. So that one's like 15.9. Okay, so what are these ones? Let's grab one of those. That's 26. Okay, so that's probably the black ones. So let's just see if it works. You got to be a little bit careful. If you thread this in wrong, it's going to cause you problems. Okay, so we've got the screw. We're going to put it in here. I do not like that these ones are Phillips, but it kind of is what it is. Because we have this like relatively bad fit trying to slide these in, so you have to kind of go at a weird angle like this. You see that? And it is considerably harder to get purchase on a Phillips than it is on a 2mm hex drive. Seems to be going okay. Okay, well, I guess that definitely feels like it's in. So maybe that's nothing to worry about. I don't know. Everything seems to be okay with it, so. All right, so that is gonna kind of pull the wing into the socket, speaking of the horizontal stabilizer, into the socket. You see it's at an angle. Once it gets down into the plastic down at the bottom, that screw is gonna bite. Okay, well, I guess maybe not 100% confident, but I think it's gonna work. Trying to think back to other models, and it's been a long, long time since we had one that used a Phillips screw like that. In this type of application, but let's see if it cinches that joint closed. It kind of doesn't, but if you look, that gap is about perfect. You're moving the plane, by the way. That gap is about the same as this gap, so I wonder if that's what's going on. So guys, if you end up having to force these in and you're having trouble, don't feel bad. It's kind of a little bit hard to get those started. So I'm just bummed because now I've got these crush marks on there, so I don't know. We could try to use hot water to pour hot water over that and take those little bumps out. I'm not sure if it's going to be a big issue by the time the plane's done. But you really did have to press hard to get those in. And then you get this crushing effect. So you can expand that back out with some hot water or steam. Just be careful, don't overdo it. If you do over it and it's got little bumps that come out, you can smooth them with your thumb. All right, so the next move, so we have the tail feathers on. We do not have the actual ball joint snapped onto the elevator, so we're gonna come back to that. I'm gonna intentionally move that off of there so it doesn't, I don't wanna forget, because that would be bad. That'd be pretty devastating. If you don't have an elevator hooked up to your plane, well, unless you're talking to Ian, because, you know,
then you
Ian
don't need one.
says you don't need one, but that's okay. A properly balanced
This is not exactly a sailplane.
Exactly. All right, this is not a properly balanced sailplane. Okay, so it looks like there's two of these and they're different lengths, and ironically, the two tubes into the fuselage and install both wings over the tubes. The connector on both sides should be attached precisely and firmly. Okay, well, don't you think it'd be handy for us to see like which one's longer? Okay, so here's how we're gonna tell. Because the instructions are not so clear, we're gonna take the longer one and we're gonna go down the middle because there's more meat here. We're gonna slide that through and then we're gonna slide this through. And you're like, but Brian, there's supposed to be a fuse in the middle. I agree, but now what we can do is we can say, okay, so that's all the way in and that's all the way in. So if we have a problem, we're gonna be able to tell, hopefully, by doing this. Okay, all the way in, and let's just see if I can get this alignment quite right. It's just easier to do this on the table. Okay, so yeah, so that pushes in. That seems about right. Now, if we were wrong, then, and we switch them, then we'll have a disparity and you'll be able to tell. So this is gonna be short in the back and the long in the front, which I can tell you already it's not gonna be correct. Or at least it doesn't seem to me like it's gonna be correct. Okay, so the longer one in the front. See if we can get the alignment to start. Camera crew, help me hold that in there. Pull it towards you. Thank you. Well, crap, that's not as distinct as I was hoping.
No, it's
That
not.
does seem like that's right. Gosh, I don't know, maybe it doesn't matter. Sure seemed like it was holding it apart before. So I was trying to figure out the depth of the holes. It's not so immediately obvious as you might think, but let's lay this on top of there. Yeah, well, if it was out any further, it wouldn't work. So I think we must have it right.
So what did we end up with?
Well, the second with, okay, good point. We can tell the people at home if you haven't figured this out yet, because we haven't, certainly. See, that's bottomed out. That's bottomed out. I think the longer one goes in the back. It's just, it's got to. Maybe I just didn't have it all the way seated the first time. But see, then I hit. See, because you got the dihedral there as part of your factor you're fighting.
Okay, so you have the long and the back right now.
Yeah, are they even supposed to be different lengths?
I don't know. That's why I asked when you took them out of the box, because it seemed
Strange that they would be different. See what I'm talking about? I just wonder if maybe I just didn't get it all the way in. See, that holds it out wider. So that obviously won't work because that's going to hold this out further than where that's supposed to. Well, yeah, that's too wide.
too wide.
Yeah, so I think we've established that the long one actually goes up front, which is sort of counterintuitive if you ask me.
Yep.
Okay, so the short one goes in the main spar hole. Okay, so we'll slide that in. And then the longer one actually goes in the front. Okay, so you can see that the longer opening here. Okay, so let's do this. So camera crew, you and I are gonna have to kind of work together on this.
Okay.
Maybe you just have your hands ready. Okay, so line it up with the holes on the fuse. I think it's gonna be easier to just pass the wing through first, but it's gonna wanna tip over and that's okay. Okay, so the holes you can see are gonna come from above. Now this one, you know which bolts are gonna be used because it's like super obvious. Wiggle a little bit, but don't go crazy because you gotta line up your plugs. Okay, now let's let this
Want me to hold it on this
let
side?
go. Don't hold the surface. We'll just let that bump the counter.
Okay.
All right, guys. So it's not one to pull out at least, which is nice. And just keep in mind, those pins have to line up. All right, so we're just gonna line up those 2 points, and once they're lined up, camera crew, lift up the wing all the way out on the tail, or on the tip, rather. Okay. Ooh, boy, this is kind of awkward. There we go. So for those of you that are watching this thinking, it seems like you're struggling a lot. Yeah, we kind of are a little bit, but. Okay. Okay, so the plug, there's the plug, okay.
That looks right
So
then.
okay. Well, ironically, the main wing was easier than the tail.
Yeah.
That's
yeah, those fit nice.
very unusual. So, all right. Thankfully, that went well. We've got some long screws. These ones are like 65 millimeters. Yep. Okay, so those should just drop straight down here, here, and then there's 2 more, one of which is kind of covered up by these wires here, and then another one up front. And I love that that's all inside. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, so I'm actually gonna use, I think this one, nope, that one's 1.5. This one's 2. Can't tell if it's purchasing or not yet. Maybe it is. Yeah, it's going. So folks, that was easy. Yeah. That is unusual, highly unusual that the main wing goes on easier than the horizontal stabilizer. Usually the horizontal stabilizer is like a 2-second thing.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so we're just gonna try to do this as quick as possible. There's a lot of extra threads exposed. The shorter ones are gonna be used to build the spinner and prop assembly. Okay. Okay, here we go. That is a big ESC in there, goodness gracious. It's right there on the side. If you want to show them real quick. It does come equipped with an EC5, which is nice. So an EC5 will be compatible, of course, for us with an IC. There you go, guys. There's your huge ESC, and then you can see the rail where your big 6S battery is going to sit. Okay, getting really good bite on all this now and feeling very solid and quite easy to do. Just a lot of threading. Oops. Hate it when you pop out of the hole right when you're about to finish.
Yeah, that's never good.
Really awkward.
It's kind of frustrating.
Or purposeful. Okay, so now that's really tight. And just for good measure, I'm gonna go back around and make sure that we don't need to retighten any of the others. Okay, so yep, we're good there. Okay, so now that we have the plane generally in the shape, you can see what it's gonna be for size and everything. It's a pretty big plane. And if you guys weren't already aware, a 1.5 meter plane compared to a 1.2 meter plane it's a considerable difference in size. Okay, so like just to give you an idea, this little P-51 here is of course a 1.2 meter size class compared to the 1.5. So it's not that it's dinky, but the thing is the meat and potatoes of the actual airplane is so much bigger. It's like 50% bigger. And you're like, but it's only a couple 100 millimeters bigger. How can it be that much beefier? Well, that's because everything scales up. Okay, not just the wingspan. All right, so now we need to work on the front end. And this is where some of you guys are gonna take issue, and I already know you will, and that is, why are you putting together the prop before you have your radio setup done? Good point. You could actually wait and do that later, especially given the build on this plane. But we actually have a little bit of wing stuff to do too, so why don't we do that next? Let's put this back on so it looks sweet. That is so gorgeous. All right, so let's put our missiles on. What all do we have to do? We have to do missiles. And then if we're gonna do the, I don't know, these look like they're bombs, but they could be drop tanks. No, that's a drop tank. That's a drop tank for fuel. These would be bombs. Okay.
And
so
those
which
are the
one's which?
glue-on ones.
See how there's a shape
There's
to them?
a slight angle.
Yep. So there's dihedral on the wing. So you got to pay attention to that. So I don't know if I should flip this upside down maybe. That's a pretty girthy plane.
It is.
That is awesome. I'm super excited for this one. Okay, now watch my vertical stabilizer there, camera crew.
You are good.
All right, so this is gonna go over here, pretty obviously over here. Ooh, I'm disappointed that hit the black line. Shoot. It'd been nice if it would have been on the other side. Okay, so now we need to glue that, and we can use a number of different types of glue. My glue is actually behind the tail, sorry folks.
Over here.
I have a different couple of choices here, but this was actually for speakers, and this is just straight up China glue. Now, China glue is some of the best stuff you can use for this type of application. You could use CA if you wanted, but I like China glue because it's more like what they actually use to build these. And once we get these gears opened, I am going to attempt to bend that straight, that plastic. Now this is actually for rubber cement that held surrounds on speakers. I'm just gonna try it here and we'll see if all hell breaks loose. Pretty sure it won't. So this is an EPO, and this stuff is ultra tacky. And this is called M3035 rubber adhesive, so it's super similar in makeup to the actual China glue. The difference is that I have some, and it's in a tube, and it's in my hand, and so I'm using it. Whereas the stuff from China is out, I'm like low on stock. And so normally I would use foam to foam, but foam to foam has been out of stock for some time. So I kind of necessarily had to stop using it. So I'm gonna let this sit now and cook off. So if it doesn't smell, it's done cooking, okay? And you're like, well, why would you let it dry? Don't you want to be able to stick them together? Yeah, of course. But this is how you make a contact adhesive work. Contact cement, you put it on both sides. Okay, so just, I mean, not like a liberal amount. You don't want to go crazy, but you don't want to have, you know, any issues with this, okay? Okay, so just, you see how I did a little bit less on this wing? And that's for the simple fact that I have a little bit left in the Q-tip. And yes, the Q-tip is a great way to spread out this glue. And so you see how I just dropped that right. So in case it would drip while I was walking away from it. And this stuff also does like to puff up out of the joints. Not like Gorilla Glue where it like actually expands like foam. And some guys love Gorilla Glue. I've never used it. I'm sure it's probably amazing. When I first use it, I'll just get, you know, fall in love with it, but I've never used it. Okay, so this is some stinky stuff, which usually means it's good. If it doesn't stink, then it's probably not any good. Okay, so we're just gonna let that cook. Just gonna smell it, just make sure it's working. Okay, so now that this side's starting to tack up. So just to give you an idea. So it's getting close. And the thing I like about that is you can just roll up the booga and just get rid of it. So this is probably good enough, and I'm just gonna do one quick once over, make sure I don't stick this in the wrong side. And I'm gonna push it from the tail and until it's forward, and I am going to support underneath the wing or on the top of the wing, if you will, because it's upside down. And that's that. And then over here,
I can smell it.
one more quick smell.
Usually stuff smells when it's done cooking.
No, not this stuff. Okay. So now, the problem is there's a gap here, so there's not much strength. So when I push on it, I'm trying to push in such a way that I spread out the weight of my hand, just like when we were pushing in the horizontal stabilizers, okay? See how that popped down in there? Okay, so that will be good. And I mean, I could probably, but I'm not going to, hold up the plane by that if I wanted to. Okay, so these, disappointed that that's white. Be nice if that was a different color, like maybe green or silver or black or something like that, because it would just look dang good that way. That looks sweet, actually. Is that in the right position? I think it is. So these would be rocket pods, obviously. So the rocket pods would be a real thing, which is totally cool. And then, of course, the drop tank, which it's ironic that they have that in this greenish color.
Gray, but yeah, that one's not.
Kind of weird. Ooh, that is like really
loose.
Like hardly any friction at all. Okay, so if you run into a situation like that and you want to resist the temptation for that to slip out, you can actually do a little bit of contact adhesive on there, and you're not trying to glue it in place, you're just trying to make it like harder to slip. And I don't know if you want to necessarily let it dry like you did with the other ones, because it's just kind of a pseudo temporary thing. And that's just gonna, see, it's just gonna tack it in there.
Yeah.
So you could still pull that thing out, 100% guarantee you can. Okay, so now guns. Now, which way are the guns? I don't know. It looks like they...
Small on the outside.
The leading edge of the wing is pretty flat, so small goes on the outside. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right past like the first
Why
black
are the
line.
barrels offset like that, camera crew? You already know this answer. Oh, dang it, I put the rocket pods right on top of where I need to work.
Wait, why are the
Here,
barrels
look.
offset?
It's keyed. You'll be able to tell because there's a bit of an incline here.
Yeah.
The reason the rocket pods, or the reason the guns are lined up like this, is because each of the barrels of the guns coincide with the full 9 yards of bullets that go in there, in most of the planes, in most of the warbirds. So they open up, they have panels that open up on the bottom of the wing, and that's where they put all the bullets. Yep. And
You thought I knew that?
Well, you've seen it in a real plane in Denver. Don't you remember that? I'm surprised that wasn't like
busy taking care of our children.
Oh, I guess there's that. But yeah, so anyway, if you've ever heard the expression the full 9 yards, it's because they're talking about the full 9 yards of ammunition that's loaded into each of those strips. And those strips, imagine like the belt, it's a belt, it's not a strip. Imagine the belt that feeds a machine gun. It's the exact same thing inside of the wings, and they have panels that open up, and then they can reload those. So I'm just gonna let that set, and I'm gonna do the exact same thing on this one. Camera crew is gonna grab that missile off of the missile pod, off of that, pull it forward. Thank you. I'm just gonna put a little bit. You see, I don't hardly need any. This is actually proven to be pretty good stuff. We've used it on a couple of models now, and it hasn't melted the foam yet, but we are dealing with better foam than some other choices. If it was an EPS, then I would not probably use this. I think it would eat it. But this is EPO. So EPO is generally gonna be somewhat safe on stuff like this. Okay, I'm gonna just leave this here.
So now I have to go on a mission to find speaker repair glue to use on our
Hold
airplanes.
on. Crap, I thought it would be obvious, but it's actually, there's a bit of an angle on these too. See what I'm talking about? So there's a dihedral involved. Oh, so yeah, so it goes like this. So what about repair glue?
Now I have to go find that so we can use it on our airplanes.
I don't know. I mean, if we can't get the foam to foam, maybe. That one on there, no problem.
Yep.
Super easy. It would have been, you know, I understand why the manufacturers do it this way, because they have customs that they have to follow, like customs rules when they're shipping these items. And so they can't just ship anything, even if it costs them, you know, $1 to include, you know, like a tube of glue, not this size, obviously, but they would include a tube or tubes of glue like this. Many times the customs rules don't allow for that glue to get through. So what they do is, some of the lesser above board Chinese companies, let's just say, we'll send like 2 to 3 tubes in every model, and sometimes they'll like hide them inside of the battery bay, and they call it like an integral part. You know, like, oh yeah, that glue was part of the assembly, or you know, they'll come up with some stupid thing like that, and just be like, oh, we didn't understand. Yeah, this is just totally above board. That thing looks freaking sweet. Oh my goodness.
That is a big plane.
Oh yes. Oh boy, I'm really, really liking the way that this thing is turning out. So super excited. Okay, all right. So the next step obviously is going to be to, we actually do have a couple of antennas and stuff.
Oh.
Where are the antennas? I know there's one on the back. This of course is a Razorback, as you can see, because it is got that long swoop on the back. Yes.
So there's one here.
Okay. So
The
I'm
other
gonna put
one's got to be in the wings somewhere.
Yeah, it sticks out the front on one of them. I just don't know which one yet.
I don't see it.
Now, a lot of times I don't glue this top antenna thing. This is I believe this is a pitot tube, and you can just stab it in. What, they don't have it on here?
I don't see it.
I think I remember.
Because it would be, maybe it's like way out on the wingtips.
Oh, I'm sure it is. But what I'm thinking is I'm gonna just put a little bit of this glue on here, just like this. Okay.
Okay.
And just get it on the end of that pitot tube. I think it's on the right wing. Okay, so then this is gonna go either this way or that way, so it's pretty obvious it goes this way. Okay. And that'll fit right in there beautifully. Now remember, if you transport your planes, you may not wanna actually put that in yet.
Yeah.
Okay, so the instructions don't seem to, they don't really, there's a pitot tube. They're showing it upside down, so it's on the other side. So it is on the left wing, and they are very ambiguous on their drawing. There is a hole, though, they say.
That's what I was looking for.
I don't see a hole.
I didn't see a hole either. You're usually better at finding that than me, though.
Well, I would hope.
Where are you looking?
Okay, so if this was upside down, then it'd be this one for sure. And I'm just struggling to see if there actually is a hole here, and maybe we just are missing it. I know we could go look at another P-51. Oh wait, I don't have this P-51. That's not my P-51 then. Gosh, I'm torn. I don't see anything obvious.
Stick it anywhere?
I'm just gonna stick it right here.
Oh.
I know. Oh. It wasn't that bad.
Okay.
Now, does the blade go up or down? Oh, I think it goes vertical, technically. Guys, I don't know. Leave it in the comments below when you realize I did it wrong. How about that?
Someone will correct you.
Yeah, somebody will for sure. That looks so sweet. I'm really excited for this plane.
That's very cool.
Wow, it's really has come together in the last 20 minutes. That is just amazing. Okay, so let's do the prop now. So of course the prop is, and then we don't talk about this a lot just because it's kind of obvious. With FMS, they usually send you one extra of the main hardware. So if you're counting and you're confused as a result, that might help answer some of your concerns. Okay, so now obviously the yellow is gonna go forward. So I wanna look at this and see if it says anything about, do they say anything about the prop?
No, they're just on the picture on the box, I think.
Okay, so the inboard portion is where the label is, right?
Yes.
Okay, so the inboard portion is where this is so much easier to do when it's not assembled.
The little yellow writing goes on the inside.
Okay,
Yes.
so it goes like this.
Yep.
Okay, and I do like to do this before I assemble it if possible, and here's why. Because then you can line these suckers up and get them really good, and it's quite easy. If you want to get super particular and measure and mark, you can do that, but we don't tend to get that detailed. But that looks really good. It disappeared into it would have been nice to have a matte finish on this though. Although maybe it would have showed up more. Okay. Make sure you got your props the right way up. But yeah, that clear is disappearing nicely into the black, which I like a lot.
I don't know what it is about prop stickers. It's like one of my favorite details.
I know, I love it
ridiculous.
too, because it looks so cool. I used to always do it with white paint. Mm-hmm. And this was back in the day. And some of you guys may not be aware, but even before we worked with all these manufacturers, we were doing this. And we loved it then. Well, I loved it then, and I love it now, and my wife still tolerates it today. And me, sort of. Sometimes. Okay, so this is about halfway out. Okay, so Hamilton Standard Propeller Company. Okay, so if in doubt, make them the same at least, guys. So if you do it wrong, just do it wrong the same so that when your prop is spinning, it won't make a weird look to it, because that would be not cool. I've done some other things too, like I'll take a sticky note and measure, and then you can use that like a jig, but I'm thinking we're gonna be close enough.
You're pretty good at doing it by eye.
I am pretty good at that sort of thing, which is just a weird thing I do pretty well at. Oops, didn't do so good on getting that centered though. Okay, so we'll just keep doing this, guys. Now, this is the only decals you have to do on this model too. So if you want to do additional decals, you can certainly and always do that. But right here, we'll go ahead and see if we can get this figured out. Oh yeah, so gorgeous. Sorry, I'm blocking you with my whole hand. I'm kind of blocking myself. It makes you feel better.
They're kind of tiny.
Yeah. Well, it's just, I didn't get that down very good, did I? I need to pull that up, so I'm just gonna use this backer. I gotta get my hand so I can see better. All right, folks, there you have it. Okay, good. Cool. So we're done with that, so that can be tossed when you get a second there, camera crew. At some point, we're gonna have to mark the CG too, but I think for now, I'm gonna see if the instruction manual talks about how to build this. I think I know how to do it, but I just wanna make sure I'm not missing something obvious. Okay, so they have the spinner going on the outside, obviously. This, of course, is gonna go back because it's got that keyed opening on it, okay? And these are gonna go like that, okay? Props are clearly going to be keyed in here. There's kind of like a retention point, and then there's a place to receive a screw. So we'll just kind of set these in place. It's not a hard thing to do. One thing that's nice about this type of prop design is if you ever do have a prop strike, you know, it's a little bit easier to actually get it fixed because you can just do one blade at a time. So when you buy a replacement, if you do, then you can potentially just replace the one prop that got damaged, or the 2 or 3 or 4. So we're gonna turn this in. And we don't have a nut in the back, and you're like, why are you spinning it in, Brian? Because there we go, because it just didn't want to fall. And then these are nylocks, so you want to make sure the nylon goes toward the plane. So that'd be, you know, currently down. So the nylon is the narrower portion of the nut, and I'll show you if you aren't privy to that from other circumstances in your life. I love that that is exposed. That is super cool. Okay, so this is what I mean by that. That nylon, you can see the nylon in the lip there, and then there's just threads on the other side. So you want the nylon to catch the outside threads. So it's gonna look like this as I slide that in, okay? Of course, now I have to tip it to get it to go. All right, so we're gonna do that with all 4 of these screws, and then it's gonna go on like any other prop you've ever done. And that's a very simple, but look how sweet this thing looks.
Yeah, it's really
is
cool.
14/8, so 14 inches this way, and then 8 inches of pitch, okay?
That seems like a big prop for a 4-bladed prop on this size of plane.
Actually, in real life, the prop is huge on these planes. Because they are fast plane. Well, they can be fast. I don't know if this, this one's not true to scale, and usually the warbirds, until you get just like really expensive and huge, you don't really get that close to scale, because this would be even bigger on a real one.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know if they have variable geometry on these in real life. I believe they can change the pitch. Oh, there it goes. It's annoying until it pops. Okay. All right, so then we're 90 to 95 millimeters back from the leading edge for the center of gravity. Just keep in mind that Ordinance goes in front of the center of gravity. So if you take it off, you might actually throw your center of gravity just a little teeny tiny bit. It's not heavy. So, and then those outboard bombs are gonna stay on there. So I'm just going through and just torquing this, each one, until I feel like I can't really go anymore. And then that's gonna ensure that we have a nice tight seat all the way around the edge. And what a freaking beautiful prop. That thing is looking good.
Yeah.
Okay, and then of course that's gonna go right like that, and that is absolutely phenomenal looking. Okay, so let's put this on now. Now this is where people are gonna be like, oh, but Brian, don't cut your hand off. I can show you pictures of my ripped up arm and hand. I believe you guys. You don't need to send me pictures. I know that people do get hurt doing this, so please be careful and don't do this if you have any concern, okay? Wow. That is absolutely fantastic. That is so gorgeous. Okay, this plane is really going up the list for me because it is looking really good as we keep working on it. Okay, so we're gonna take set cleanup and come right back. We'll do the radio setup. Okay, so center of gravity is gonna be 90 to 95. So I'm just gonna open up my calipers to 90. Okay, good enough. Set this little set screw. Now I wanna go on the top of the wing. And they're saying from the inboard portion of the wing, and there is a very, very small taper back here, so just be careful where you mark from. Okay, so I'm gonna go from here, and then I made just a little detent, and then over here, I'm gonna come in and just make a little detent. And then I'm gonna change my setting to 95. So 95, of course, 5 millimeter differential between, that's a pretty tight.
Pretty small
tight.
Range.
Yeah, not a very big range. And if you want to just kind of, if you are sighting down, what you're looking for is this part where it starts to fold from flat to here. Not necessarily from the actual wing, but like right here, okay? And then this tapers back a certain amount, so you got to take account of that. You have to take that into consideration. Okay. Well, that's good enough. I don't think I marked them very good today, but it's all right. It is a little bit challenging to mark when you've got to come off of such a weird spot, but a lot of times they are. Okay, so I'll just mark this and highlight that color, and I want to be able to feel it when I have the plane hung upside down on my fingertips. And yeah, some of you might think that that's a little bit ugly, and I completely understand. Some of you won't want to do it this way. You'll want to maybe do it a little bit different, maybe a little cleaner. But I've just had super good luck doing this, and I actually don't have any problem with it. I think that's going to be close enough. Also, once you get your battery in there, you're generally going to not need to do that every time, okay? So a couple safety considerations, as we mentioned earlier. Because we have the prop installed on our plane, we're gonna make sure that the plane is in a position to where if it were to go full throttle, we could hold it until the battery dies. That would suck. And I do fortunately have a second set of hands that can help me with these sort of things. And so, you know, we're just gonna be prepared. We're gonna be intelligent about the way we do it, and we're gonna be careful. You can just leave the prop off and you don't have to be any of those things. But it just literally is your safety standards for your own. So just do what you're comfortable with. If you get caught, just please be careful. Okay, try not to get caught. Okay, and it's not that hard to take this prop off. Okay, so we can pull this thing up. And we have to get in here now to actually land some wires and things. But it's kind of like at this point that we're getting into radio setup, and now we need to kind of make some decisions on physical placement of stuff. So I've got my side cutters here, some zip ties, and then of course the actual 80-20T. So I want to kind of bring this plane up by the side of the counter. I'm just going to pivot this, slide it back so we don't damage anything. See, that's going to give us the ability to get right up next to it as much as possible, and also help the camera crew to be able to see what we're doing. Okay. So let's open this up now finally. Now if you decide you want to use that 6-channel AR620 or maybe a lemon or whatever, that's fine. The this is going to be what we're doing for our setup. Doesn't necessarily mean it has to be the same for you. And we don't want to give you the wrong impression though, because we're going to have some features you might not have if you go with 6-channel. So just take that into consideration. Okay. So now this is not a spatially aware receiver. It does have support for telemetry though. And so for that reason, you have to do one additional step, and that is to tap the wire somehow or some way so that we can get that through this wire back to our receiver. So our receiver can kind of go wherever we want. Now this is also N pin, as you can see. So when you're plugging in, you've got minus, plus, and signal. So minus is going to be brown or black. In this case, it looks like we're all JR Hextronics color code here, except for maybe throttle, which is Futaba color code for whatever reason. And I'm just trying to think where I want to put this so it's easy. Why don't we just start landing stuff? Okay, so we have this, which is S-Bus PPM mode. Okay, so I think I'm going to do mode at the top end of the scale. And this is where it gets confusing because I'm like, where do I plug it in? I don't know. We'll have to do some radio setup first. We can't do all of it, but we can do throttle if we wanted. So why don't we just wait and we'll come back to it? Okay, so that'll be easy enough. But I do want to know where everything's going to land because I have to come up with where this is going to need to go, right? Mm-hmm. So let's untangle this thing. So in the past, what we've done is we've either just untangled this and then we usually twist it. I've got a nice knot in here I just created for myself. That's kind of dumb. Just be careful, don't yank too hard on this because these connectors are not the strongest in the world. Okay, so then I'm just going to twist, 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 and then a few minutes later, magically the video will start back and it's going to be done. So, and just like that, movie magic. So we have just a little bit exposed on the end here, so it's not wrapped tight. And then up here we've left just a little bit not tight at the end as well. Okay. So the reason we do that is it just makes it a heck of a lot more tidy. And I'm kind of that type of guy. All right, so we can actually plug this into the receiver. This is going to set the stage for where we put everything else. And you're like, how do you know which way to go? I don't until I figure it out. So I just try this and I can tell that it goes this way. So that little detent is going to receive that little bump right there. Okay. If you get it wrong and it doesn't go in the hole, don't force it. You're getting it in the wrong direction. Okay. All right. So then all these wires are going to go in there. So this can just chase like that. And then it can go kind of like up here along the way until such a time as it has gone underneath all this crap. I think I'm going to twist this just a little bit more. Ouch. I got stabbed by my own handiwork. Just going to go under here. And just kind of chase it back. And you're like, Brian, why do you need to put that thing in anyway? Well, because really, and then camera crew, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this as good as I want you to see it, because you see where my head is, that's where my eyes are. Mm-hmm. And so what I'm doing is I'm trying to shoot my eyes down into this spot. You see that? Mm-hmm. So what I'm thinking is if I can go in here and just kind of chase along where that wire is, worst case scenario, I could just zip tie that along and then chase all the way back up. And you're like, wow, that works out pretty dang good. It gets you right back to the connector. But you know what? Has anybody, okay, show of hands, who has taken apart an EC3?
No, I'm kidding. I watched you.
Nobody has.
Nobody has?
Ever.
Oh, because you don't like EC3.
Because it's terrible. No, you're not getting these things apart. You might be able to, and if you do, they would push out this way, and it's like, yeah, good luck. You're never going to get it. If you figure out a way to take them apart, please do let me know in the comments. Now, an IC3 you can get apart because they have a pair of pants you can take off. Yeah, I know. It's awkward. Okay, so I'm just gonna, now we need the toothpick, and you're like, what the heck is this kind of jankety install? Oh yeah.
Well, when you build plans in your kitchen.
See that?
That's what you use.
I just poked a hole in that thing, okay? So now watch this. I'm just gonna jank this right into the hole. If I can get it to go. Oh yeah. And you're like, Brian, this is the most jankety install I've ever seen. Yes, I agree. But here, I just want you guys to understand something. First of all, you're thinking to yourself, but what about all the current? What about all the power? What about all the voltage? No. This is just a test fixture. It's like taking a meter, and you got this meter, and you're like, measure 1,000 volts, and yet you don't blow up in 10 pieces. Because you're not loading the circuit. There is no load, so there is no current that's present, really. That's why when you test current, you have to have a bigger meter connection point. And that's why you have to flip to a different fused entrance on your digital multimeter. Right?
Right, that's what I was gonna say.
Okay, so I'm gonna just stab this. Okay, so I stabbed it. And you're like, are you really using a toothpick to do that? Yeah, you could use like something sharper if you wanted. Okay, so I'm just going in kind of where it goes. And you're like, that doesn't seem like it's very secure. I understand your concern, but here's what you can do. You can alternatively, you can take and strip this back, and then you can get out your soldering iron, and you can feed a little bit of solder and heat that wire and make a nice rough hard point there that's never gonna bend again. And you can be 100% sure it'll never come undone. And then you put some heat shrink over that, which exactly how are you gonna get the heat shrink over that?
Take your connector part.
Yeah, you're not gonna do that. So the only way to do it is to cut this off, redo this with another end. It's just not worth it because all you're doing is you're just tapping this for voltage telemetry. It's not that big a deal, guys. The other thing you can do too is if you're really concerned, you can wrap this around each of the wires so that there's no pressure that's going to be passed along, okay? But I'm not even gonna bother with it because really all you'd have to do is just leave a longer, you can tie it around the black a few times and then jab it in. And then even if you yank on this cable, it's not gonna undo the connection. So, usually at this point is where I will take and just do like a zip tie or two or something just to prevent mechanical movement from translating to a disconnection. Yeah. Okay. You're like, but that's the dumbest way to do it, Brian. Yes, I know. I get it. But you got to remember, we've done it a couple of times and it's been successful so far. I thought when I first did this, I thought for sure there ain't no way this jankety install method's going to work. And yet it has worked, it's worked many times, not just once or twice. And for that reason, now you may want to take some strippers and strip back more of the, the metal and have a little bit more exposure there. You can do that, and that's fine. It's not going to hurt anything, but it's just more effort, and it's not really going to gain you that much, guys, I promise you. I wouldn't lead you down the wrong path on that. Now, as far as installing the prop, some of you guys are going to argue with me on that, and that's a pretty fair argument. You know, it doesn't take that long to take the prop off. Just take the prop off, Brian. Fair argument for yourself. Go ahead and do that if you have strong compulsions to do that. But on this, I would suggest doing it this way, and if you run into a problem, you maybe lose your telemetry data once, then it would be worth cutting off the end of this and redoing it, because you can't really take these off very easy. They are a pressure fit, and they snap in, and they're extremely hard to undo. Whereas an an IC3, you can take those pants back, solder right to the lead, and you don't even need to put any extra solder in. You just warm it up and touch them together, and you're done. Okay? And you're like, why are you putting that zip tie there? Well, that zip tie is just going to keep the pressure off of that connection point. So like if I were to yank on this, see, it's not transferring any of the load up there mechanically. Okay? And then I'm going to take and cut these right after I torque them down. And you're like, but what about a short circuit, Brian? What about a short circuit? That's surely going to be first and foremost on your mind. No, not really. Because if that thing short circuits at 22 volts with the available current there, guess what it's going to do? It's going to melt the wire. It's going to be like, gone.
Well, that'll be fun.
Not the plane, just the connection. It'll melt like a fuse, like in 1 second. Yeah. But, I mean, admittedly, you could do a little bit further away if you wanted to be a little safer. So now all I'm doing is just chasing this back to wherever the ESC is, you see? Okay, and then that's just gonna kind of keep things nice and tidy, and it's gonna look nice and cute and pretty. Okay, just pull this down here. Slide it back most of the way. Now, again, there are a million ways to skin this cat. You can skin this cat in a different way if you so choose to do it. Just, you know, I just don't think it's a huge deal one way or the other.
And you could leave it out altogether if you.
Yeah, well, but
care.
I would not buy this thing and not use this.
Wow.
That would be dumb.
I always feel like our cats should be offended when you say that.
What about skinning cats?
Yeah.
Well, maybe they should stop peeing in my house. Wait, they pee in the house on purpose, though.
They do. I don't even
They're trained to do that. But maybe they should stop peeing in my stairway that doesn't have any carpeting on it anymore. There was 11 of them. It was pretty bad. It was like a veritable Jerry Springer episode in here.
It literally was.
We got 3 cats, turned into 11 in like 8 months. It was crazy. It's like Bob Barker. Maybe he was onto something.
Yeah. Should have taken his advice sooner.
Well, we wanted more than 3 cats. We just didn't know.
We did?
Well, I did. They were supposed to be outside cats. That lasted 0 days.
Well, don't bring home cats that are this big.
And super cute.
Yes.
Okay. So you see this? Now I'm going to take and just run that along my servo cable. Now, again, you could undo this here and watch what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do something different just to show you another alternative to using a bunch of zip ties. Now, again, zip ties are nice, they're convenient, they're easy to cut off if you want to reroute things. You also don't induce eddy currents when you wrap your leads around stuff. But again, we're not going to induce eddy currents here because we're not producing enough current to measure the eddy currents. Okay? If you don't know what eddy currents are, just pretend I didn't say anything, or I was talking about Eddie Murphy.
Oh, good.
Eddie Murphy, funny. Eddy currents, not funny. Do you know what eddy currents are, Megan?
No.
Eddy currents are currents that are induced when there's electrons that are being transmitted down a line, and use your thumb to point at the direction of electron flow, and this tells you the direction that the eddy currents are.
I'll let you teach that lesson in science.
Yeah. How about we just don't teach it?
Okay.
We'll teach it on YouTube. That's a YouTube exclusive. Okay, so. All right, here we go, guys. Let's do this. Let's go right here. And you're like, Brian, we love watching you do cable management. It's like twice as exciting as watching your paint dry.
Maybe people just like watching your hands because that's all they can see when we do this.
Yeah, it's like surgery on a foam thing. It's like not living, and there's no risk of death, looming death, but it's still almost exactly the same.
Yeah, totally. Just like that.
Today on Surgical Hour with Brian Phillips, he does surgery on another foam thing. Again, not a human or animal. All right, so we have all these things dangling, and you're like, that does not look complete. I agree with you this time, okay? Okay, so now you can see this is nice and tangled up just the way you want. You've got this here, and you're like, you know, we probably, Brian, are you really sure you want to leave those wires exposed with all that potential energy there and dangerous things? Okay, I'll put some electrical tape over it just to make you feel better. And it would be probably a good idea to put some electrical tape over those connections because they are sort of not really that mechanically strong. But the big thing that's going to pull those mechanical connections out is the fact that you're putting stress on this cable for any reason, good, bad, or ugly. Okay, I'm just going to cut a little teeny bit of this off. And mostly what I want to do is I want to stop from the possibility of short circuit. And the possibility of short circuit, as I said, if they touched, you would just probably melt the wire in about a fraction of a second, and you'd be like, oh, I lost telemetry. Or the plane would catch on fire and blow up in 50 pieces. I don't know, whichever comes first. So, if you want to show them, I'm doing another piece of tape for good measure, just, you know, 3/4 of an inch or so, or whatever. And that's when you say how many millimeters that is.
Right.
Oh, you don't?
Looks like more like an inch anyway.
Got man measurement. Okay, there we go. Okay.
Very nice.
Amazing.
I feel so much better with the tape there.
I know. I do too, actually. Can sleep tonight. All right, so the next move is like, what the heck is this thing, by the way? That looks like a sequencer to me. Okay. So that goes to the gear.
Oh, I thought that was for the LEDs.
Maybe it is. Maybe they pull the power for the, I don't know why they would, that's kind of weird. I don't know, actually. It's a good question. Okay, so I'm just going to slide all these labels back. You're like, Brian, why do you always slide the labels back? Well, just I'm a glutton for punishment, obviously.
Yes.
But really the reason I do it is because then when you plug them into the receiver, you always seem to have them right on top of each other and you can't see what the heck they say anyway because they're all tangled up on top of each other. And so I just move them back so that it's easier for you guys to see, and then I can actually potentially read them when I need to. Plus then we get a nice clean install. Okay, so this is gonna basically go there, but I don't wanna stick it down until I get all the wires installed, okay? So what's next? What came first, the chicken or the egg? I don't know. What came next is the radio setup part because like I really can't continue until I have the radio setup figured out. And why would that be? Because I need to know where everything's gonna plug in, okay? So we have to create the profile in the NX8 in this case. Now, just to be clear, this is the NX8. You could get an NX6 and you could run this plane as we're configuring it because there is a 7th channel that's actually a discrete, like on off. It's not a full, you know, or it's, I might be saying that wrong. It's basically an on off switch, okay? It's not gonna give you the full, you know, movement up and down for all the points in between, but I believe you get on off. You might even get a middle. But either way, the NX6 actually has that 7th channel. I would not recommend the 6, and here's why. For a few bucks more, and I mean, I'm talking a few bucks more, like 50 bucks more, you get this. And it's got additional channels that you're gonna need. It's got the right knob, which is super handy, and it's got a couple extra of these switches, I think. But the biggest thing is it's actually 8 channels instead of 6.3 or whatever you wanna consider that last channel to be. So you have the full 8 channels. Now, also, if you have the money and you don't mind spending a little bit more, the NX10 is probably what we're gonna end up training on most of the time in the near future. Because the iX14 has been released, but we are afraid of leaving too many people in the dust if we go straight into an iX14. We could do the iX14 and it would be great. We could do a lot of different planes, but so many of you have screamed, we want you to use the NX like what we're using. And plus the NX and the DX both work so similarly. It's a little easier for you guys using like a DX6, DX7, DX8. Hopefully you're not using DX7 still, but DX9, then you would be better capable of jumping and following along. Whereas the iX14 and the iX20, the iX12 are gonna be in the Android operating system. It's a little bit different setup. So that's the rationalization right now. We are still toying with the concept of going to the iX14 for some of our more non-traditional planes that have like higher channel count. So not sure how we're gonna do that. Okay, so we're gonna turn this transmitter on by pressing and holding the power button for a second. It comes up with Spectrum, and we're gonna hit cancel and back, and we're gonna go to add new model. It's an acro. If you were doing something else, you could create it like that. That's an acro. Create. Takes a little longer to create when you've got like 140 models in there. Okay, so then it beeps and comes back to this system setup screen. We had to pause for about 10 seconds there. This takes you back to where you come from. That's the acro part. If you reset that, it's going to change all your settings back. Model name, this is where you type it in 142 : space. Yes, you can edit those values, but the order in which it sorts is going to be contingent on the real number, I believe. So this is going to be the P-47 from FMS, so we'll type that in right now. I am, full disclosure, using a legacy keyboard, even though I'm at the latest and greatest on Airware, which is the firmware for this. All right, so the P-47 Razorback, 1.5 meter. Okay. Lots of beeping, aircraft type. Okay, so we want to set this to one aileron, one flap. And you're like, but Brian, there's 4 servos on the wing. Yeah, that's because you only have one control channel that's controlling each. And that's what that means. If you had 2 flaps, meaning 2 servo channels, then you would do it that way. And if you had 2 ailerons, you would do it that way. And if you had 2 ailerons and 2 flaps, you would do it that way. So like if you were using a wing type that had each one plugged in individually, it lays out the servo plugs different. And if you did flaperons, you'd do it that way. Okay. And then the tail is normal. And if you hit next, you go to select image. From the standard file, there should be a P-47 in here, which is right about here. Okay, so now we don't need an F mode, which would be a flight mode, but if you did find that you were having trim disparity between your different modes of flight, then you could set that up. We're not going to do that though, and so we don't need to set up a spoken flight mode. Well, maybe we do actually. Here's why. Okay, let's talk for a minute. We have switches on this transmitter. I need you to see the transmitter.
Nope.
This is going to be for retracts. This is going to be for flaps. This one's going to be for auto leveling in this condition, off, and stabilizer only. So I'm going to go ahead and set a switch D in this case. It's going to give us access to 3 modes. Okay. Then I'm going to go back and I'm going to go to spoken flight. See how it says flight mode 1, flight mode 2, flight mode 3, and she's going to talk each time. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to change the name by clicking into this, hit cancel, whoops, highlight, cancel, cancel. And then I'm going to type in stabilized or stabilizer. Okay, so stabilized. And it says F mode 1, so now I'm going to scroll down until I find one that says stabilizer or stabilized or something like that. Maybe gyro, something like that. You've got gyro here, but gyro gets confusing for people. They never quite know what it means. Just keep in mind this is going to be mostly for you. Where are we? Camera crew, do you remember?
We should be getting close because you're past the silent one.
Stabilization mode. Yes, I don't like that.
It doesn't say what it says.
Yeah.
There's
stability. Whatever, that's good enough. Then I can go back into this and I can change that switch to the middle. And then I can change this to off. Cancel, cancel. So now I'm going to type the word off. You could probably just leave it on for this one because it's so short. OFF. Okay, and then I can scroll all the way down. I think there's one that says none or off.
It says off.
And off. Okay, and remember, this is just a label. It doesn't actually set up any of the settings, but I'll tell you how to do that in a minute to correspond to the switch that we've used here on switch D, which is going to be attached to a specific channel, which is going to be the S-bus, whatever mode, okay? All right, so this time, this one needs to say auto leveling, right? Auto leveling, okay? Now I want that to say something like auto leveling. Now in this case, it'd be, you know, if it was AS3X and safe, they actually have AS3X and safe on here. Okay, where's auto leveling? Uh-oh. Self-level. Okay, now what does the F mode actually do also? It also designates a spot on the screen that you can see while you're running. Now, we may have to do some channel assignments. Particularly, auxiliary 2 is typically tied to B, where I'm going to have my flaps working. So I'm going to actually just unassign that real quick. And I do want this to be assigned to something, so I guess we could actually just set it to D, which is fine, okay? So now when we walk out, look at all that fancy stuff. Stabilized. Pretty cool, right? Okay, so now what you can do is you can go in here and we can set up our dual rates in Expo. And yes, we are going to set them up the same as we always do by default. And we almost never change this once we start, but I'm going to show you how I set it up. And then I'm going to give you an explanation I'm going to drop the rates down to 90% with 20% expo on the higher setting, the more expo. Then I'm going to have the median point where I have 100% rates and 10% expo. And then I have my less setting, which is 5% expo and 100% rates. So I'm going to start here. If it's too much, I can halve it. If it's not enough, I can double it. And that also reduces my rates a little bit. So I'm going to start in that mode. And then I'm going to do that on all 3 of my modes. I'm only going to tie up 1 switch because really, if you have a brain that acts as quick to be able to switch all this stuff while flying a remote controlled airplane, then you're doing better than me. Truth is, especially on maiden, you're going to start in the middle. You're never going to switch out of it because we have a stabilizer on this plane. And if you don't want that on, you just have 1 button, switch in this case, to select. And then if you want to use your expo, if you want to change that value, you have 1 switch. If you set it up for 3 or 4 switches, you're going to have a heck of a time keeping straight what's what, I guarantee you. Now, that being said, if you have an IX20 and you've got, you know, a bunch of switches, you may want to do it, but I don't know. I'm not going to do it. Also, they have sliders back here for another channel that's an analog control channel. Okay? All right. So you'll notice on both rudder, elevator, and ailerons, we have all the same settings, and they're all attached to switch F. Okay? Throttle cut, the most important safety feature. Make sure it's on. Make sure you accept your entry. Okay, as I'm moving the stick, you can see it says -100 still. When I shut it off, it moves and snaps to life. You can tell by looking at the monitor mode down here. Okay, throttle cut is in fact on. Flap system is going to be attached to switch B. And I am not really sure what we need yet, but I'll just go ahead and set some down correction to like 6 and 10. And I don't know what they're going to be, so I'm going to just leave it at 0. We'll just do like, let's do like 25 plus and 25 minus, and then we'll adjust from there, okay? So we want to leave that in neutral because then when we go in to adjust things, we won't have problems with our elevator being compensated, okay? So we can walk out of that. Timer, we're going to set to 5 minutes with a 1 out active. That means when you go over the threshold, 25 in this case, it's going to start the timer, and it's going to continue to count down even if you lower the stick back below the threshold, which is 25 in this case. Okay, so 1 minute is going to be voice, 20, nothing, 10, voice again for a countdown. And then I want tone and vibrated expiration, and then a tone every minute thereafter. Okay, telemetry we're not going to mess with. It will auto-populate what's most critical, and then bind will be available when we're ready. It's going to totally not be there by the time we're ready. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to cancel out of this, and we're going to go to monitor mode. Why monitor mode? Because I want to know where to plug everything in, of course. And that means that our profile is basically done. All right, so now that we have kind of like our profile set up, we can just lay this down where we can see it. Now we know where everything plugs in. So the throttle's on channel 1. Okay. So we just need to find the one that says throttle. There's throt. So the first thing I want to do is I want to kind of make sure that I'm not tangling these up. So it's easy. I want the brown is going to go down. How do I know that? Because it says negative there. Okay. Throttle is not the first set of pins. It's the second set of pins. The first port. Okay. The bind plug is actually going to go on the first one, which is not actually a bind plug at all. In this case, we use the bind button, but you can use a bind plug too. Okay, then the second thing is ailerons. So ailerons, where are ailerons? Here's ailerons. And you may notice that these are going to plug in. You're going to have to probably go to the other side, I bet.
I'll try.
There you go. Why is the light so blocked? I feel like it's not very good lighting right now. Okay, so then elevator. Elevator's here. So remember, we're just doing cable management as we go so that it's not messy when we're done. And I have people say that my wiring looks reasonably good sometimes, and then other times people don't make a comment, so it probably looks terrible. Okay, rudder,
They would tell you if it was terrible.
They would tell me. I'm sure they would. Okay, rudder. And you're like, how do you know which one's which, Brian? Because I'm looking at this thing right here again. Okay, then it goes straight to gear. Now you'll notice the gear jumps over to this weird doohickey here. And so I'm just gonna kind of be careful about the way I unfurl this cable. Did you like that use of the word?
That was impressive.
I'm actually going to unfurl this in a different way. I'm going to go underneath all of this so that it's unfurled in such a way that it's contained, because that is going to be otherwise very uggo. Okay, so as you can see now. And then we have the next thing after gear is flap. Okay. So flap is going to kind of do the same thing. I'm going to just put it under here. And I'm just gonna see if I can get that to be nice and neat. I must say this has been a pretty easy install. The hardest part has been the horizontal stabilizer, which is pretty goofy. Okay, so now auxiliary 2 is on the next one. So this is gonna be our S-Bus PPM mode. So if you had an S-Bus PPM output, then you could use it, which would be like that port, okay? So you don't actually have to technically plug all this crap in. You can just plug that one into the bind program SRXL2, I believe. You might be able to. I'm not sure. It depends on, I'm not sure if that's supported on the S-Bus side of things, but you might be able to. So I apologize, guys. I don't actually know that for a fact, so. Okay, so now you see we've got this nice bundle. It's very neat. It's easy to manipulate and manage. So I'm gonna just take this. I'm not gonna zip tie it. I'm just gonna carefully take and just stuff it in the hole. Stuff it in the hole. In the hole. Just like that. Stuff it in the hole. Okay. Look how nice that's gonna, it looks like they're friends.
It does look nice.
Oh, it's so cute. So now what I'm gonna do in this case is I'm gonna grab a piece of double-sided tape. Oh yeah. And we're gonna stick it right where the sun is not gonna shine on that receiver, because it's inside of a cavity. Oh yeah. So we've got some double-sided tape here. Pretty amazing stuff, as you can tell. Ooh, I like this one because those ones come from lemon and they tend to be extremely hard to peel back. Let's see if this one's better. Oh yeah, that was way easier than the lemon ones. Okay, now this is not spatially aware, so it doesn't even have to be mounted, but I'm gonna just do it so that it looks amazing. Does it look amazing?
It looks really nice.
Sounds like you're just pandering now.
Just hungry.
Yeah, she wants to make some pizza for me to eat. Yay. Okay, great. So that looks very nice. The cabling looks nice. I think I'm gonna throw one zip tie here too. Now that everything is sort of in place, you can make your final decisions on how you want to secure things, or if you even want to secure things. I feel like this turned out pretty good. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's better than it could be, and it's was not hard to do.
It was not.
It was just kind of like one step at a time sort of thing.
We are, however, at 15% power, so.
Uh-oh.
To go fast.
Okay, that's fine. I will continue at a medium pace.
And my mic is dead, so they can't hear me.
They can't hear you?
No.
Uh-oh, is my mic also
Yours
dead?
is almost dead.
Oh, buddy. You're gonna want to keep an eye on that.
I'm going to.
Okay.
You're in the red.
Seriously?
Yep.
Man, maybe we shouldn't have sat around and screwed off before we started this video, like every other time we do. All right, guys, so all joking aside, we really appreciate you watching these long format videos. We get punished pretty bad for doing them by YouTube, and we enjoy having unedited content that helps you to learn a lot and be able to follow along in the comfort of your own homes. If you want to help support us, buy these planes from the links. We don't care which ones you buy, but we just want you to buy what we recommend when it's a good plane and it meets your needs. We do like working with these manufacturers, and we tend to find good manufacturers because the good manufacturers are willing to let you tell the truth. Obviously, that is one of the demands we have of all of the companies we work with. If they won't let us tell the truth, we won't let them work with us. And I don't know. You guys might cry BS on that, but I'm sorry. It's the truth. We tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help us God. And sometimes that gets us in trouble too. You want to turn on that light there, camera crew?
Yeah. Oh, no, my battery's too low.
Oh, it's too
Sorry.
low. Wonderful.
You're on your own.
I literally can't see then. Okay. Well, that does make this challenging because I need to stick that doohickey through the hole. Now, this is a diversity antenna, so what that means is that I literally can't have something. Oh, there goes. There goes. I found the hole and I just rammed it right in there. That was awesome. Okay. Oh boy. Guys, I literally can't see. I don't know why I can't see. There we go. Now I can see. Amazing. Point the light into the hole and then you can see perfectly. So guys, we work with a number of different big companies, and the big companies sometimes have some of the best stuff and sometimes they don't. But usually they get access to the best pricing and things like that on some of these pieces of equipment that take a lot of labor to build. And let's remember, making RC airplanes is not the easiest way to make a buck. If you're a business person, or if you have any concept of what a business person goes through on a daily basis, making a quick and easy buck is generally, it's high on the list of things to do in a given day. So if you're a crazy person, then you could just make radio-controlled airplanes if you wanted to risk your fortunes. So we are very, very happy that some of these companies exist and have decided that they're going to selflessly take on a risky position to do what we love for us, and that is to release these amazing planes. And so that's part of what we do here on this channel, is we help to market stuff through the companies that work with us, but it's not our only purpose. We also want to grow the hobby, obviously, help prevent one and dones, which is when people get the wrong plane for the wrong reasons and end up crashed and upset and crying at the airfield by themselves. Also, we want to help to support companies that are growing, and we want to help support the mature companies to also encourage them to do the right thing for us. And that is something that we've always done. So we hope you guys can see that. And also, we appreciate you guys being Patreons. If you're Patreons for us, we really do appreciate you. I'm having a hard time getting the angle I wanted to get on that, guys. I apologize. I think I'm gonna divert and do a different angle. I just have to be 90 degrees off from the first one, so I can actually do this. And I don't want to make it through to the wing below. That's why I'm going at such a shallow angle. Remember, 90 degrees is still 90 degrees no matter how many degrees you go this way. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm just making this one strictly perpendicular from my other antenna. And that's going to give me the maximum diversity. And diversity just means that you're going to have the best crack at not losing signal depending on your positioning spatially. Okay. So you can see how that now will be at 90 degrees from the other antenna. Hold that here so that they can see what I'm talking about. See this? 90 degrees. Still 90 degrees. Still 90 degrees. Still 90 degrees. That's what I meant by that angle. Okay, so that's done now. So now it just becomes a matter of binding the plane, and you don't even need to tape those antennas in there. And so that's our next move. So we're gonna do that right now. This is where you wanna be careful about safety so you don't get cut, and also gear clearance, as the gear could pop out of the plane at this step. So we're gonna do that next. We have our batteries charged, and I'm just gonna actually grab a This is a Gen 2, it's a 30C, but it's not the one I'm gonna probably fly it with, so I'm gonna go ahead and plop this in here. This thing comes out like that. Very heavy duty FMS straps. These 30C smart packs would probably do fine on this model, I suspect. But we'll go ahead and respect their wishes for now, probably, and go with like a 50C, okay? Just to be on the safe side. But for the rest of the setup, we'll do it like this. And the camera crew and I are going to be careful that we hopefully don't lose our mic. If we do, then we might be making some pizza in the interim while our mic charges.
You're good for a minute, at least.
In case you guys were wondering, we use wireless are these wireless go-tos?
Yep, road.
Road wireless go-to. Okay, so then that thing slides in there, super duper easy. By the way, easy to load battery means more used plane and better value in our opinion. We have said it before and we'll say it again. Batteries that are hard to load means that you will tend to fly the plane a lot less.
Yep.
And I'm just saying there is a psychological component that we haven't quite figured out. Even if the plane is amazing, you'll find it to be true. Trust me. That plane is an amazing plane and it's hard to load the battery. It will impact my decision. If I'm in a hurry, I won't be able to do it. So I won't. Okay. Not always. I'm not saying it's never worth loading. I'm just saying in some cases, it's going to be beat out by the fact that the sun is going down. Okay, bind failed. Now, listen, when I plug this in, all hell breaks loose. I've got the ability to grab the plane, okay? And I will. Okay, so all hell didn't break loose. Now I'm going to press this button once. It's going to start flashing. Everything's flashing. Why is everything flashing? That's because we're about to bind. I'm going to scroll down to bind. Very good. Okay. Now we're just waiting for everything to initiate. Okay, great. Now we're going to go elevator. It's not hooked up. Good. Roll left, roll right. Y'all left, y'all right. Gear. Oh, yeah. Oh, those are so cool. And I love this tail wheel. That is so sweet. Okay, gear going back up. Oops, I got hot. There it goes. That is absolutely gorgeous, guys. I love it. Okay, now let's talk about the direction of ailerons. That is wrong. Click, servo setup, travel, reverse. Ailerons are now reversed. Good. Elevator is not hooked up, but it is going the right direction. Y'all left, y'all right. Okay, so we're good on that. So we have to hook this up now. So because we are not in our flap correction, meaning in this mode, we have no elevator correction in position 0, position 1, position 2. We are allowed to go ahead and hook this up, but we also want to make sure we're not in auto leveling. So I'm going to go to, I don't know which one's which, but if I'm in off, I believe I should be safe. Okay, so elevator up, elevator down. So what do we have to do? We have to plug this thing over the top of that. That's obviously not gonna fly. Haha, pun intended. So I'm gonna like take this and spin this a bunch of times until this lines up more closely to what we want, which is probably gonna be maybe one turnout, maybe one more, see how it looks. Nope, that's too much. Okay, so that's where we wanna be, don't you think? So now I'm just gonna snap that on with my finger. If I really am a glutton for punishment, ow. Okay, elevator up, elevator down. Okay, now come back here, roll left, roll right, elevator up, elevator down. Y'all left, y'all right. Take off flaps, landing flaps. Okay, so our flaps are operating backward, not a big deal. We'll fix that right now. So within the flap mode, I'm gonna set that to that's landing flaps, and you'll see they're moving. They keep moving. Very good, so I got to 100%. Takeoff flaps are probably gonna be a minus value for me. Maybe like that. And then neutral flight is gonna be a very negative number that goes all the way back to -100 and beyond, okay? So then how do we fix the rest of that? You go to travel, and while you've got this selected, that's gonna go into the position that you articulate with this switch. So you can highlight that, and you can run. Looks like about 140 gets us right up to level, okay? So then with the flaps down, let's see how much more we can get if we want it.
About 5% better.
Okay, so we're all the way down to 130. So 135. Okay, so that gets us almost barn doors down straight. Okay, now we're gonna walk back out. We're gonna go to flap system, and we're gonna change this speed from normal to 2 seconds. Take off flaps, landing flaps. okay? And I think right now, we might not even want that much landing flap. You know, we might only want 80, okay? So pretty sweet, guys. And the elevator moves down just a little bit and in sequence and in time with that action. So now the only thing we have to do is verify that our modes are switching. And the only way to do that is to move this plane around a little bit. So we're gonna drop this canopy back on. Everything should be good there. Oh, now let's show them our voltage quick. As you can see, volts right there, guys. That's super nice, and we can set alarms and things like that. Okay, so elevator up, elevator down, roll left, roll right, yaw left, yaw right, takeoff flaps, landing flaps. Okay, throttle cut is on. I'm gonna go ahead and shut off throttle cut. The prop doesn't go, that's good. Now it does. Oh, yeah! Throttle cut's back on and tested. Very good. Big LED, that's so cool. Look at that, amazing. Okay, now I trust this because I've already tested it twice. Now I'm gonna pick up the plane. I'm supposedly in off, okay? Stability mode. So let's see if this tries to auto level the plane. Sounds like it is. Yep, so that's in the wrong condition, but I believe off is off. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna rotate, servo setup, travel, reverse, auxiliary 2. Now watch this. Look at the elevator, trying to level the plane. Oh yeah. And then on its back, finding the quickest route to level. So auto leveling is definitely working. And then we want to see that that shuts off. When we go to off, you should see no movement when I swing this. I hear nothing. That's good. Sorry, the batteries died on everything. Okay, so we were just going over whether it was stabilized, auto leveling, or off. So stabilized, the way you're gonna tell if that's working is you'll pick up the plane and you'll move the plane so that you can see the control surface move. And I'm looking at the elevator and I can see it go whatever direction I move it. Now the elevator, same thing. It's subtle, but I can see it. Okay, now elevator and ailerons, when I go up, it's gonna be super hard to see, and you guys will probably not be able to see this. Full disclosure, but I'm just gonna point you here, and I'm gonna trap this next to the fuse. And when I go that way, you see the rudder goes that way. Now I'm gonna stop, and I'll go slowly the other way. See how it goes the other way? It's subtle, but it moves. Now watch the elevator. I'm gonna go up, focus on the elevator, goes up, and it goes down. Now focus on the aileron, roll down, roll up, look at the gap between the flap and the aileron. When I go up, it goes up. When I go down, it goes down. It's very challenging to see on camera, I believe, but it definitely is working. And it's working whatever direction the plane moves, the surface should resist. Okay? The same is true on the rudder. When you're looking down, you'll see the rudder fight the movement, or fight the movement, which means it points into the movement, okay? Thus eliminating the movement if it were actually allowed to work with air movement going across it. Okay, so everything is working. We have the elevator up and down, we have yaw left and right, we have roll left and right, we have takeoff flaps, we have landing flaps, and we have the most beautiful landing gear we've seen in some time. Out of the flaps, you can see it better. And just absolutely gorgeous. Wheel wells are painted green and then spring-loaded. That is so sweet.
Those are nice.
Yeah, this is just a really, really, it is so gorgeous. Now what I want to do is I want to check CG. Now, historically, okay, so double check your throttle cut before you pick up the plane every time and periodically. Remember, there's not much to hold on to, so you got to be careful how you do this. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this upside down. When they get big like this, I have to be careful not to hit my light fixtures. And we'll give them a good shot of everything when we're done here. But I'm on the back hole, leans forward, on the front hole, leans back. So that's perfect. And look at the landing gear doors. And that is just absolutely phenomenal, guys.
Painted.
Even on the retract on the back, you've got painted gear doors. Just absolutely gorgeous, folks.
Very cool.
So super excited to see this FMS 1.5 meter P-47 in action. It's gonna be something else. I gotta put this thing down because it's like huge. I'm just afraid I'm gonna drop it. The bigger the plane is, the easier it is to drop. And the harder it is sometimes to find a great place to pick it up. So one thing I've always tried to do is when I'm holding, first of all, I usually take the Ordinance off after a maiden flight, or a couple times. I don't usually like Ordinance. But I like these, they're glued on, they're gonna stay. I like the rocket pods a lot, so I'll probably keep those. But the drop tank makes it real hard to pick up. Also, when I know I'm gonna be manipulating the plane a lot, like for instance, going through a lot of doors and things like that, you may find it easier to actually go ahead and close the gear and then use it. Also, when you're checking your CG, don't be surprised if you get a little dent in that wing. So if you're super anal, you can actually glue a little bit of plastic up here and then you can mark it and you can prevent having damage to your wings when you're checking your CG, because you're bearing the weight of the plane on there. Absolutely gorgeous plane. This thing's gonna be great. I can't wait to share it with you. And then as you know, we basically put that battery right on the center of that tray and slid it in until it clicked. And it was perfect. 6S 5000 happens to be a Gen 2 and a 30C, which is not technically within spec because this thing calls out a 35C. But in our experience on prop driven planes in particular, on FMS, a lot of times they call out 35C and we're usually okay with 30. Now, if it was a jet, I wouldn't even think about it. I would go straight to 50, probably up to 100C, like with the J11, for instance, or the SU-27. So anyway, guys, super excited about this. It's gonna be gorgeous. We appreciate you watching. If you wanna help support us, there's so many different ways. Definitely smash the like button. The long format kills us on YouTube. That helps a lot to stave off the trouble from YouTube. That in and of itself. Subscribe, click the bell for notifications, and then when you're recommended a video from Brian Phillips RC, watch it, of course. And those things all really help us grow on YouTube. But then if you're just wanting to help support us financially, but you don't want to buy this plane, maybe you're, if you're in Canada, you can buy these, and they will ship to Canada. And so definitely check the Canadian links there. If you are in UK or New Zealand or Australia, where it's just not practical, it's maybe a little bit too expensive by the time they add some VAT taxes and things like that, then you can support us on Patreon. And just keep in mind, we list no actual material, how do they word it? Benefits on Patreon. But some of the things that we try to do is priority comments, basically. So if you're trying to get through to us and you're having trouble doing it, by the way, we don't reply to people on Facebook. We're not trying to, upset anybody. We're not trying to put anybody off. We just literally have chosen not to do it because we cannot keep up with YouTube comments, let alone Facebook and Instagram. Yep. So if you DM us on Instagram, we probably won't get it. Just understand, we're not trying to avoid you guys. We do care about you. We do care about your concerns and your questions. And we do try to help people with things like that. But just keep in mind, there's only so many things that I can specifically and personally answer. And I do a lot of it. So we try to do the best we can, but we're just getting further and further behind. So just understand it's going to take some time, even if we do get to it. But leave your comments. We try our best. And this is a great place, but the best venue for comments anymore has just become Patreon, just because there's maybe only like 30 or 40 people there. And those are the people that really support us. And so we just end up getting to the comments first. Plus the notifications come in different on Patreon. So I see them. Again, if I got notifications on my phone for YouTube comments, it would literally not stop chiming. We can't even do it. It's like 10,000 notifications. 999 all the time. You couldn't do that. You wouldn't be able to pick up the phone ever. So definitely cannot wait to see this thing. It looks like it's called the Bonnie, the P-47 from FMS. One of the most detailed canopies, cockpit areas that we've ever seen in our days. Absolutely gorgeous. There's even throttle knobs and stuff on the side. It's just really cool. It's something we didn't expect. We didn't know was coming that way. And then obviously the LEDs are good. We don't have a white tail LED. And these do not look like they're gonna be the most insanely bright LEDs, but it might be enough that you dip behind the tree line, at dusk, you might be able to get your orientation. But again, it's not like you're gonna be doing night flying with this thing. And so very, very excited to see this thing flying. You see those controls right here? That is so gorgeous. So
Very
cool. So can't believe they put so much into there. And we didn't even talk about it, but there's tons of venting up here by the motor. I literally have my fingers stuck inside of it. There's lots of room, but then they spared no expense to have 2 colors painted on the plastic. I mean, guys, this is a high gloss. Look at this. This is a literal camera crew view in the reflection. Amazing. So cannot get enough of this. FMS, you did a great job on this so far. I hope it flies half as good as it looks because it's absolutely gorgeous. And by the way, if you're a plane manufacturer and you're thinking about doing a weird livery, don't. I love this type of livery. I don't get tired of it. You know, obviously the invasion stripes can be different from plane to plane, but doing the olive drab, silver, gold, red, you know, red, white, and blue, things like that. I never get tired of them. Don't worry, you don't need to go and do, you know, like a giant tiger or something on there. I mean, you can do that once in a while, but give us the option for the actual warbird style liveries. That's what I want, and I think that's what most people demand, even though they are harder to see, like this J11 in the real world. I like it that way because it's realistic looking and it's super cool. So definitely awesome, guys. Help support us. If you want to buy this plane, there's a link down in the video description below. We'll link to the battery. We'll link to the receiver we used. We'll link to the transmitter we use. We pretty much always do that. If you're wondering where the links are, they're down there. And if you can't find one, head over to Brian Phillips RC. Also check there for coupon codes if they do exist. Not saying there is one on this, but there are many times changing coupon codes that you can check out. Might be able to save a pretty significant amount of money. FMS does run specials like that on their website. So check it out. And if you guys find that, you know, it's out of stock or something like that, we always have other ways. We have master links to different places. And, you know, so if it's out here and you're really desperate, hit us up. We'll try to help you find something. But to the masses, that's one of our deals. When somebody sends us a plane, then we link to them. But we don't tell you to buy anything just because we said so. If this thing isn't your thing, if you don't like the P-47, why would you even consider it? This is an awesome plane, but it's not your thing. Get a P-51, get an F4U Corsair. I mean, there's so many amazing choices out there that are really good, but there's also quite a bit of garbage and pseudo garbage. And we're gonna help you sort through it. And a lot of times, guys, it's just because it's cheap doesn't mean it's garbage. And just because it's expensive doesn't mean it's great. Okay, that's the hard part. There's some expensive planes we've had that have not been amazing, and we've had some very cheap planes that have been super fun. But then also we try to put that into context and, you know, help you guys distinguish between the two, especially if you don't have 400 in your basement, taking up 1,800 square feet of storage, floor to ceiling, because that is a real problem for us. And we are really grateful to you guys for helping us make that a problem. So stay tuned. So much more from Brian Phillips RC. We've got a whole new batch of stuff showed up today, and we can't wait to bring it out to you. Stay tuned. Definitely come back. We appreciate you. World's best audience on YouTube.